Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to have your lunch with us. We hope that this event is one of community building and one where we can definitely share some best practices around promoting student retention. And as Jeff started in the beginning, I wanted Jeff for you to speak about why this is important, why this topic of promoting student retention is so important and crucial, particularly as we begin spring 2021. So Jeff, can you please unmute yourself? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I had started that, and let me add just a little bit more. I mentioned in the email about the enrollment right now being 50% less than last year this time, and it's really the way we saw it at the start of the fall. It did eventually pick up because of some ingenuity on the part of departments to shift into some late starting short-term classes. So we got around 10% by the end of the semester, but that's still hard. And also imagine all the life experiences of students that's a reflection of. So that means our students are really hurting. Right now, we actually have something in the neighborhood of 9%, 8% uh, uh, decrease in the student head count, right? But we have 15% decrease in our student enrollment. So what that tells us is yes, we have less students than last year, but we actually have them taking less classes. And so that's really a reflection of how challenging it is for those students. Um, and we know that not just at our college, but at other colleges, it's really very difficult for them to get through. Things are coming up, whether it's family, whether it's themselves in terms of health, employment, um, and what oftentimes keeps students going is their ability to make it through because of the support they get from their instructor and their classmates. And so, um, to the extent that we're able to keep students going, they will persist. If we're not successful, what will happen is we'll have less continuing students, and along with yet another decrease in terms of the cohort. I forgot to mention in the fall, that decrease was mostly from new students. Continuing students were doing pretty good sticking it out last fall. So there's a potential for the enrollment decline to be exacerbated if we lose too many students this coming spring. And I don't mean to stress in that way, but for me, that we all do things that help keep students, and this is an opportunity to share. So I wasn't sure if to ask questions, because we have other things, but I did see Rin, and I'll take just Rin's question, and then I'm going to hand it back to Nancy. All right, Rin, what's your question?
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Ren.
Okay, Jeff, can you give us like some hard numbers, because 15% of what and 20% of what, and I would like some hard numbers to know where we are in terms of our student population,
So the 15% refers to the FTES enrollment, full-time equivalent student enrollment.
which has been
This
what
this
to what?
this 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 point in time, this day and time, compared to last year. Compared to last year. So
Again, do you have those hard numbers? I mean, it's like 25,000 students we had before.
you know what I'll do is I will upload into the chat what is currently available. There's going to be a DVC meeting coming up on Wednesday, where there'll be a new report. It fluctuates because it's a year-to-year comparison. But why don't I upload it to the chat? The information that you're looking for. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and back to Nancy.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Jeff, for those thoughts around the importance of student retention and why is it particularly important that we all pay attention to that moving forward in spring 2021. So the objectives for today is to begin our conversation about identifying what are those warning signs learn about best student retention practices, share examples to promote student retention. And then at the end, we hope if we have time, we individually devise a personal student retention plan. So we can walk away with tangible, um, realistic. Let me go ahead and mute everyone.
Oh, de vez en cuando dicen
Go ahead and mute everyone. There you go. Thank you. So we want that at the end of today's presentation, you can walk away with tangible resources and ideas to incorporate in your spring 2021 courses. So that is our goal. With that in mind, I would like to introduce our two other facilitators. We have Dr. Shamini Diaz, and we also have Elena Tinker Diaz. And both of them were going to help me facilitate this discussion. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to add them in the chat or raise your virtual hand. Elena and Shamini will keep looking for those virtual hands. So we will definitely keep our eyes open there. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's begin with the first part, identifying warning signs. I took the liberty to put a few items here. In the past, as I reflected upon my own classes and my students, one of those warning signs that I saw come up were that many of my students perhaps were missing classes. Maybe they missed 2 consecutive courses. Perhaps they were missing every other class. Others were failing their examinations, or they were not getting passing grades. And another thing that I noticed is that they were not engaging socially. They were very quiet. They would come late to class and they would leave, right after class. And it was very hard for me as an instructor to reach out to them. So those were some of the warning signs that I took to heart. And I would then try to follow up with those students and see what is going on, how can I assist and support them. But what are some warning signs that you have seen? And at this point, please either put it in the chat or raise your hand so you can tell me, and then I will go ahead and write them here on our slide. So what were some of those warning signs that you took note in your previous courses? And again, feel free to add them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your virtual hand. And Shamini and Elena, please help me with this.
Sure. I see David said here, students leaving whole sections of test blank. Greg says consistently missing smaller assignments. Jennifer says missing formative assignments.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Great ideas. Thank you for those of you who are typing them in the chat. So this is important to keep in mind because, we're going to be starting the semester on Monday, as you all know. So right away, we should start thinking about those warning signs. How can we make sure to help students feel welcome and to encourage them to participate? And if we start seeing those warning signs, to be able to identify them.
This is Christine. I'm the director of the nursing program. One of the things, when I came in and I knew that our students had a very poor rate for passing NCLEX, we hired a student success advisor. That was number one. Number two, and really number one, was advising all my faculty that although passage on a nursing exam is 76%, I wanted every student that was at 78% to obtain a referral to the student success advisor. That advisor would help them nail down what is the problem? What are they struggling with? Was it test taking itself? Because in the end, they take NCLEX, and those tests can be very, very challenging if they're not getting by ours. So my goal is those quizzes need to be in the 80th percentile. That, and we got a platform that is tailored just for nursing. It's called ATI. And that's what the faculty will be using. So it'll be more standardized across the semesters. But the really big one is 78%. Don't wait till they fail. When they start getting at the low end of passing, that's when I call them in. And the faculty can meet with them one-on-one to discuss what the issues are. Sometimes it's other equity issues that impact it, but oftentimes it's just they don't understand the content. So it's explaining to them and referring them to the student success advisor.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I added your idea here.
And I see Lauren has her hand up.
Oh, yes. Um, I just was thinking about this. I mean, I'm in non-credit, and so um, I think for me, one of the things I noticed was I think some people have put it like not logging into Canvas. And I think one of the things that I need help with, that maybe the academic son can help with, is like computers. Like if their computer, like they have an issue with it, even it got if issued by ELAC, like I don't know how to help them. And so I've had great students that have come back and then they left because they're like, teacher, it's too hard, I don't want to deal with it. So um, we identify the problem, but how to identify the solution. And the other thing I think is, when the more that I've had students come together and do lots of getting to know you and feel like they have a sense of community and friends in the class, that's something I did in winter that I didn't do in fall as much. Way better in terms of retention, because it's that small, like quick thing. Like I do something when they start in the Zoom and everyone's little faces are there. I say, everyone say hello. And it's kind of a dumb little thing, like, but it's something you could do in credit, like, you know, hey, superhero, can you remember? They're like, you know, but it's one of those things, community building thing that I think is, people miss that right now. They're so isolated that they miss that. And so I think that's one thing to add, like, if they're not engaging in those things, like even if they don't even say hello to somebody else, then that's a problem. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes. Other ideas? Other warning signs that you've taken note?
In the chat, we see here long delays in replying to emails. And then replying to emails, I see that again. Participation drop off. So I think these are the warning signs that we're identifying, which is great, because now we're going to think about how can we try to address them so that we can learn how we can connect with students and encourage for them to still stay in our courses and still pursue their academic goals.
Absolutely. So take it away with your second part.
Sure. Could I screen share, Nancy?
Go ahead.
So hi, everyone. My name is Elena Tinker-Diaz, and I teach in the English department as well and help with PD things. And let me go ahead and get back to the right side. Give me 1 second, everyone. Here we are. So we're going to try to organize this around 3 tips that we're going to offer. And so I'm going to speak to you about tip number 1, which is fostering inclusive learning environments. And I'm sure we are all doing this in some way, and we are going to get into breakout rooms in a little bit after every tip to let you guys kind of share out with each other about tips that you have, because we are our best resources. We all do our own thing, and sadly in silos. And so this is hopefully a chance for us to come together. So looking at tip number 1, it's foster inclusive learning environments. And so what I shared here was 5 different ways you can, specifically in the start of the semester, foster inclusive learning environments. So sending out a welcome email, even before the class starts. That would be one way to make that connection already head on in the beginning. And so I sent out a welcome email about 3 weeks ago, just letting students know, hey, this is who I am. This is what the class is going to be about. This is how we're going to kind of do Zoom, technical resources, but also like student services. So just making that first connection and then starting to already build that relationship with the student. An invitational syllabus, and we can talk about what that means, but I know oftentimes we think of our syllabus as contracts, and Shamini was so kind as to teach us a few semesters ago about how the syllabus should instead be framed as an invitation. How can we invite the students into our course, into our content via our syllabus? Welcoming language and environment, and we'll talk about how to do that and foster that, providing a space for student voices, and those kind of consistent check-in with students. So I think one of the things that we can try to think about when we're like, how do we do this, or what does it mean? Looking at the tip that you see here on the screen, it says, think back to your last learning experience, whether that was in a class or a workshop or a training. What was it that made you feel valued and eager to participate? So that if we can remind ourselves of putting ourselves into that position of like, okay, when I am a learner, what helps me? When I've been learning, what made me feel valued and made me feel like my professor cared, or I wanted to go back to class, and try to implement those strategies. I think that's a good guiding light.
Elena, we see Jose having his hand up.
Go for it, Jose.
Unmute yourself, Jose.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, before we move on, and you guys were asking what problems we see in the classroom. I just finished today with the winter intercession. It ended up being a very small class, and I've been teaching for over 15 years at East LA. I also teach at Mount SAC for the same amount of time for the most part. And I always notice a big gap between the sort of preparation people have at Mount SAC in the Mount SAC community in Walnut and what East LA is for the most part. PCC was somehow close when I used to teach there to Mount SAC too. There was always a gap of up to 10 points in grades difference between ELAC and the other schools I used to teach at. With the change to online, what I'm noticing is that actually students at ELAC are showing a lot more effort than what people at Mount SAC are showing with this. And actually the grades are coming closer, but not because East LA is improving so much in the other things that I'm gonna mention in a second, is because Mount SAC students are lazy butts, basically, with this online situation. What I'm noticing incredibly in this winter intercession, especially where normally winter or summers are way better than regular semesters in grades and the way students perform.
Hold on, Jose. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for those comments. We do appreciate your honesty and really in discussing, what are some of the challenges that we all face. But it is also very important that in this discussion, we want to focus on the strengths that the students are bringing to our class. And so with that in mind, we're going to continue the discussion because some of the points that you're bringing up are issues that definitely need to be addressed, but not in this conversation. So we're going to come back to that at a different workshop. So thank you, Jose. Elena, can you continue with the presentation? Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted there. So as you can see here on the screen, what we're trying to think about is how do we create an inclusive learning environment and what does inclusive teaching look like? And so this has been on the screen here for you to peruse, but we have to think about, there are many things that we can't control, as Jose was mentioning. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, but there's also a lot of things that are in our control that we can do to create a learning environment to help our students. And so that's what we're trying to do, because more often than not, students stay with a class because it reaches their goals, but also because they feel that connection with the professor, or because they feel like, oh yeah, this class is important and valuable for me. And it's through that, the work that we do in supporting students, that they feel that connection as well. I do see that there's a hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to this slide, but go ahead, Richard.
I'm sorry, this might have been something you mentioned in the first 3 minutes, but how are you doing the captioning?
Oh, so on Google Slides, when you do a presentation mode, you can press closed captioning. And so this is something that if anyone is doing Google Slides, this would be a great thing to do. But Rogelio, who's also here, mentioned that there was a recent update to Zoom. Do you want to share about that, Rogelio? Rogelio, are you here?
Yeah, so starting this Monday, Zoom now has the live closed captioning. So as we talk using AI, just like Elena's doing with this presentation, you can now do it through Zoom. So you might have to enable it under your settings when you when the first time when you go under settings in Zoom, and then after that under the closed captioning thing that you see in the bottom bar. It'll be one of the options where you can do like live transcription, it's called. And so it's going to be, that's a game changer now.
100%. So I see David says here, do you think students would find it distracting? I don't know, I guess everyone's different, but we want to try to make sure, if you look here at the screen, UDL, about how can we create something that is universal, that can help everyone kind of come to the table, and not necessarily, as we see here on the screen, equality, but trying to move towards more of the justice, so that we can welcome everyone into the classroom, and not because of technology or because of whatever else, exclude them from that learning experience. Nancy, let me know if there's anything going on in the chat, but I am cognizant of time, so I just want to move on to some of the tips so that we can get into the breakout rooms. So Nancy asked if I could share some tips. And so I already mentioned the welcome letter, but creating a welcoming environment. And since we're online, of course, it has to be online in some way, shape, or form. So one thing you could do is, I don't know if you guys know Padlet, but Padlet is a website where you can actually embed it in Canvas. So if you look here at the screen, in the middle, it says welcoming environment. That is a screenshot of my Canvas page. And there is a Padlet where I embedded and just said, like, semester hasn't started, but feel free to introduce yourself and share questions. And you can see that students who I haven't met yet are already introducing themselves and letting them know about themselves and asking each other questions. So kind of creating that environment where they feel that they're part of a community. So that using a Padlet, giving them a space where they can share each other connect with each other. Another tip for fostering that learning environment would be to use exit tickets. So some of you might already use those or know them. Can I expand it? Oh yes, give me 1 second. Oops, let me get to the right screen here. Oh, where'd it go? Let me try to find that in a minute. And I will expand it. And then you can do exit tickets. I'm not sure if you guys know, but in Canvas, there is there's a option for a graded survey where it's anonymous. So you can ask students questions about feedback and make them like know that you care about their opinion about what's going on in the class. So I know it might seem a little small here, but I wanted to show you guys that it's on Canvas and it's ungraded. I give it 1 point so that there's some incentive to do it, but it's anonymous. So it's not anything that like, oh, you said this and now I'm going to hold this grudge on you. It's just for me to ask them, okay, what can I do to help you in this first week? And what's something that you thought was important to learn? So those are some tips that I have to offer for you guys. Also check-ins. I'm not sure if you guys know, but on the assignments in Canvas, there's an option where you can message students who haven't submitted work yet, or even message students who didn't earn up to a certain grade, and maybe just connect with them and ask them, how's it going? I know you haven't submitted this assignment. Please let me know what's going on and how we can kind of help make sure to get you back on track. So those are just some tips to offer. And then Nancy, do you want to put them into breakout rooms?
Yes, let's do breakout rooms because we have such a large group today.
Yeah. So when we put you into breakout rooms, I'm going to share this Jamboard. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Jamboard, but that's another way that you could have students interact with each other and build that sense of community. So Jamboards are like, Jamboards, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat there, are kind of similar to Google Docs, but not as elaborate. It's just a space for students to answer questions in different slides. So I just put it in the chat. Yes, we are going to use the Jamboard in the breakout room. So Nancy, if you can go ahead and start setting those up, and then I'll kind of explain the Jamboard while you're doing that. So if you look over here on the left-hand side, you see that there's different annotation tools. And so one of them is a sticky note. And what we're going to ask is maybe if you want to write your name or the names of the people who are in your breakout room, and then you can write down a tip or strategy or some sort of practice that you have. So maybe I would put here breakout room 1 and Angela, and then here would be the tip that you could share. And once you create that, then that's put here, and then everyone has it accessible for you to be able to read and share together.
Perfect. So the rooms are created, and so we'll give everyone about 5 minutes. Is that okay? Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and open all the rooms, and please accept the invitation.
let's see. Hi, Nancy. I pressed the join button. The whole thing's
Let me see if I can-
disconnected. Hold on. Let me try this other thing. Let me reset my screen. Okay. All right.
Let's see. More. So Karen and Dennis Lau, make sure you accept your invitation. Hi, Shamini.
Hi.
Dennis, I think you should go back to your main room, Dennis. To your
The
breakout.
breakout room.
Yeah, Dennis, were you able to go in there? Okay, I don't know if he can hear us or not. But let me bring, I just saw her name. So that was 3 minutes. I'm gonna should we give him like another minute?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let me send him a message. Okay, let me put it a minute. Let me bring Elena back to the room. So with your presentation, is that okay if you share your screen as well?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Where is she? I just saw her and I lost her. Oh, here it is.
And I will, is it the same Jamboard or is it a different link?
It's the same, no, it's gonna be a different link, I believe.
It's a different link. Okay, so I'm gonna go and grab it now so I can put it into chat later. Right? It goes to the same link.
Oh, does it? Did she create the same link for it?
Yeah, it goes to the same, I can see everybody's work on it right now.
Oh, I thought she had done a different link for it.
No, it's the same one. Yeah. So it's fine. It's all in one.
Hi, Elena. Hello. We're coming back. Okay, good. I'm gonna go ahead and start closing the rooms. We'll come back together. We can't hear you, Elena.
I said, did you just invite me? Because I had told my whole group like we needed to go back.
Sounds good. So here we go. I'm gonna close the rooms.
The time was almost done.
Yeah. So they have 60 seconds to leave their breakout rooms and come back. Hope that was enough time.
Were there other tips? Because I know we only got to a few of you in our breakout room.
Yeah, I get them in a Slack group before the class starts, before the Canvas shell is up, and I can engage with them in chit chat about all sorts of things about the class in advance, and including why I structure things the way I do, like the reason for each thing and what I'm trying to do. In my case, I tell them I'm trying to orient this so you guys reserve a certain portion of your week every week to give your attention to this, because without that, they fall behind immediately. So they understand that each of these things I'm putting them through is for that reason. And I try and get them into a rhythm with it by about the third week so that they can keep up, and pre-onboarding them into the Slack group so we can be having the conversation seems to help with at least some of them.
I have a question about the Slack thing. I really want to, maybe you can connect with Nancy and do something on Slack, because I've been wanting to hear about Slack. I heard it's like way better than the discussion boards, because I don't like discussion boards. It just doesn't work for me.
There's a reason it's blown up the way it has, because it's based on the old IRC chat, but with a better interface. So it's a different environment, and people always feel like they know they can reach me anytime. Like usually I'll be at my computer at some point in the day. So it's just like very easy asynchronous back and forth. And it's so easy that if you just go to Slack and sign up, the power that it has is its onboarding is just dead simple. And you can start a Slack group easily. I just send them an invite link. I send them an email that says, hey, join the Slack group. There'll be information about the class. And then they come on, and it's excellent. It's not a steep learning curve.
Yeah, David, thank you. I see Shamini, her hand up, and I thought I saw Rogelio's hand up.
I just wanted to add very quickly that my students' reaction when I use Slack is, compared to the discussion board, is that feels more real. And a discussion board feels too school-like, and actually get deeper discussions in Slack. So it could just be the form of it is more familiar. It's part of the world they know.
How do you do that within, we might have to table this, but I'm interested in how do you do Slack as opposed to a discussion?
If anybody, we should table it so they can keep going, but if anybody wants, after this is over, I'm happy to do a Zoom and do a screen share with you, and I can walk you through it.
Yeah,
When you see it, it will be obvious.
Perfect, thanks.
That's why we're here together, right? To build community, share resources, and this is exactly what we're doing, and I love to see this. And yeah, but absolutely, we're also developing a Technovation series. We used to do it before, we kind of put it away, but now we're doing it again. And so these topics such as Slack and other techie topics will be discussed in these upcoming workshops. So look for it. Okay, so let's move on. Elena? We can't hear you.
My bad. It's always a battle, right? Sorry, I finished my part, so I'll pass it over to Shamini.
Okay, and I'm going to share screen.
Sure.
So let me go over there. Hang on. Okay, Oops, why is the share screen not happening? Okay, it is happening. Right. So what I'm going to, whoops, am I here? Yes. So I'm going to talk about this, foster student-faculty relationships. Let me go to present mode. And, you know, what you're going to notice right now, having dived into what Elena was presenting, is that this is at the heart of building community. So we talked about building community, but all of those ideas, the welcome email, the invitational syllabus, the language we use, giving students their voices, you know, giving their voices space, checking in. This is all really part of tip 2. But what we want to do now is go deeper into thinking about, you know, who you are and the identity you bring and how open and vulnerable. So that brings in this question of vulnerability as well. What's the persona that goes into a relationship with students? So these little tips here are some of the ways we operationalize this. And one of the things to be very aware of is that this speaks to the authentic you in the classroom, right? So we can all do some of these things that have nothing to do with our personality. And this is that balance, right? Because some of us are shy, some of us are more private, but learning the names of each student, as when you call, especially in an online environment, when you say Jenny, when you say Cheng, it's so much more connecting, helping them learn each other's names. So with all of this, when we say student-faculty relationship, for every one of these things, or most of these points, you should also think about, how do I get them to have relationships with each other? So how do we help them learn each other's names? Having the one-on-one time with students, either at the end of class. One of the things I've done that really works for me is, you know, I just have this 5-10 minute moment, and the students know ahead of time. It's part of the thing we talk about on the first day, to say, we have time at the end of class. You can either say you want to talk to me, or I might invite somebody to stay and chat. And at first I usually have to invite them. And it's just chatting about, so how did class go for you today, and what's happening in your life? This connecting with students, finding out their story is really important. And right now in the pandemic, that is one of the most important things we can do. Sometimes they want to tell us things, but they don't know how to. And in a physical classroom, they might slip in a little early, they might hang out after class, but on an online space, there isn't that sort of downtime, informal space. So fostering relationships now in an online environment becomes super critical, because it has to be intentional. I think I know many teachers do this, that in the early part of your course, or even before the course, together with a welcome letter, you may have them fill in a little poll. But it shouldn't stop there, right? Doing a midterm, mid-semester check-in through an anonymous poll. How's it going? I usually ask 3 questions. What are you enjoying in class? What are you struggling with? How can I help you? And usually I get a lot of really good feedback to those things. And putting in that question, what are you enjoying in class? Many students tell me, I never thought about that, but this is what I'm enjoying. And it makes them find that motivation. So the relationships we build with our students allows them to feel a little bit more open, so that when they hit the challenge and they're thinking, I'm just going to chuck it, don't do this anymore, they'll talk to you. And then that last point is something that is really fun to do, especially in an online space, is make a playlist. Part of relationship building is playfulness. and fun. And so this is just one idea. People do all kinds of other things, storytelling, but a playlist of music is a super easy thing to do. You get students to come up with their favorite songs, play it before they come to class. So they enter to music and they'll go, oh yeah, that's Hamid's music, right? That's Hamid's song, or to end class. And a lot of students just hang out and listen to the end of the song before they leave. So it builds, again, you see, it connects with what Elena was talking about. Building relationships with students, building relationships between students is part of building that community. This is a nice, very simple, I like this list. It really is like a simple list to follow. Expectations, and we do a lot of this, but now when you think about it in terms of you are helping to build a relationship with your students, with clear expectations and goals, you want to also ask for their expectations and goals. One of the things with this list is that it should be reciprocal. When you build rapport and community in your class, it is also for them to bring their voices and have their ideas for building community. So one of the things that, and the research really supports this, metacognitive development helps students persist in their education. So when you say community is important, you know it. When you say community is important to your students, and have them think about how do we build community, they become a lot more invested. Same thing with modeling inclusive language that acknowledges student differences and preferences, helping them talk about it. And then they doing the same gives them a sense of connection to themselves and to you and to each other. There's an activity to develop awareness, and one of the things that, like point number 4, developing an awareness of all the different identities in the classroom. This allows you, if you actually give just a little bit of time in the second week of class, to do this, having students write down who they are inside. What do people not know about me? And who they are, what their assets are, what are your strengths, what are your resources, what are your assets, who are your champions, and then the external visible identities. So who am I when the world looks at me? This is really powerful. It allows them to really, and then allowing them to share that with each other, not in any big way. They are shy students, they don't want to share. So it's just permissioning. I'm going to give you time, breakout rooms, share anything you want to share with each other. And then, having them introduce their peers. The talk about identities, the talk about the invisible part of you. It's one of the most important things you can do to build relationships, because when students are feeling very challenged and they want to give up on learning, having thought about their own internal identities, having intentionally thought about their assets, mean that they are likely to persist, but also likely to come and talk to you about it, because there's been the sharing about who we are. And of course, when they do that, this is something the teacher should do as well, and share with them. And then, of course, problematic patterns of interaction. In the first 3 minutes of this session, everybody talked about the danger signs. So before the danger signs happen, in this kind of a session, and talking to your peers, what are some strategies you can think of now to anticipate some of those things, so that when they happen, you can move fast and do something. This was a quick bunch of ideas, and I'll sum it up in a minute, but what we're going to do is go back to the Jamboard and add some more ideas to the relationship building piece. how do you build relationships with your students? And how do you build relationships among your students? So try to think of it in these two spaces, right? You and them, and they with each other. Quick sum up, the whole idea of building relationships is creating a sense of openness in the classroom, bringing the whole student in, bringing your whole self in, and being a little vulnerable to share that, right? So that the relationship will be there when times get rough. Many students say things like, I love going to this class, and I hear this from many of my peers who teach and they do this relationship building. I love going to the class because it's my time away from all the troubles in the world. Your class becomes the respite. This is the one time they are there, their whole selves, with community, in relationship that is caring. And they really need that, especially students who have a lot of family responsibilities. So instead of the responsibilities pulling them out of school, school becomes a place where they get to rest in a caring space to get some respite from all the burdens that they have. So on that note, I think it's the same Jamboard.
It is the
right?
same Jamboard. We're going to use page number 2, and I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms again. So we're going to go back into our rooms. We will all have 5 minutes. Discuss it among your peers, put your notes in Jamboard, and then we're going to come back together. Okay? So please accept the invitation to the rooms. Here we go.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, good. I'm glad.
I wanted to let you know that I got feedback from the participants that they asked if the rooms can be smaller if we're going to stick to 5 minutes, or if they can be given more time to give everyone like space to speak.
Okay, so I'm going to give them 5. Last time I only gave them 3 minutes, so I'm going to make sure to give them 5 minutes this time.
Okay.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. So this is good. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to do the last part, but I already shared the presentation with the entire group. I will go ahead and post the link again in the chat. And I think when we come back, it will just be closing thoughts, just to be mindful and respectful of the time that we want to end at 1:30 for everyone.
Excuse me, Nancy. Hello.
Hi, Arden. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Why am I stuck with you folks? How come I didn't get into a chat room or a, I'm in a breakout room?
You not get an invitation, Arden?
No.
If he joined, if anyone joined late, they might not have been in late because we're back in our original breakout rooms.
Oh, I had to change to my phone because the other one I couldn't use. I see. Can you send me to the one that was with, who is it? Humberto? I was in that one originally.
Okay, let me see what room he's in right now. Let me check.
Humberto, Villanueva, Eddie. Yeah.
Okay, let me send you there right now.
Yeah, so I can bug him more.
There you go. Go for it.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye. glad folks are coming back to the main room. Humberto, I love your idea of having a karaoke at the end. That was awesome.
Did somebody say karaoke?
Yeah.
Did I miss it?
Nancy, then Jose Ramirez walked in on me when he was chairing. I'm like, oh no.
I love
But
it. I love
it
it.
was the last day. So
I love it. But you know, it's true. I love what Shamini said. It's all about playfulness sometimes.
It is.
Having the opportunity to just be vulnerable, be playful. Students appreciate that. I mean, as it is, life is hard. We have so many responsibilities and burdens. And so sometimes humor and line up the situation in the conversations in the class. Yeah.
I dedicated a song for my wife, Nancy, and then I guess she saw it, she's like, don't do that again. That's fine. No need for that.
Well, I came back to hear the word karaoke and I thought, yes, that's great.
Good point that somebody made on the chat. Is there any problem? Like if I ask them for playlists and make a Spotify song that's playing when they come in, is there a copyright issue there? Was that accurate? How would I find out? Who would know? Who would I ask?
I have actually looked into that a little bit. So here's what I found out, not from a lawyer, but from like scholarly communications librarians. If you make a playlist, say on YouTube, and you play that, you're quite safe, because anything on YouTube is, you're not using it for commercial gain. So I'm not sure about Spotify, but it's for class. No judge is going to rule against you.
If I can comment on that, I'm doing
Deputy DeVos would do anything to us.
David, if I could comment, I'm doing a pop culture class right now, and I'm putting all kind of videos of everybody from the 1950s on up. So I'm just going by, as long as it's on YouTube, it's good. And because they can find it. If I can find it, they can find it.
Right.
So I don't think there's any, and I think like Shamini says, that there's no copyright problem because I'm not selling it. Yeah.
Well, that's
doing
okay. Don't want to get lawyery about anything, but if it's on YouTube and you're using copyrighted material, it can be taken down. And in my experience, it has been taken down. Like, you're not gonna get in trouble.
You just get taken
but it
down.
will be removed, or it will be muted.
The reason it works on YouTube is because the videos on YouTube that are like the original source material tend to be Vivo or some other thing that has ads in them. So that's how that's being taken care of. You're not preventing that. Now, if you took down the videos, right, and then set them up under your own account and without the ads, that's where you're going to have some issues.
And that's what happened.
That's the way to think about it. Of course, you're going to play back the video with the ads and try to like skip the ad as soon as possible. That's fine. That's the arrangement.
Thank you so much for the comments. Because we ran out of time, believe it or not. We're having a great time having this discussion. So the last tip is that we wanted to share with all of you as a group is providing campus and community resources to our students. This really sends the signal that we are here advocating for our students. We have them in our minds, we have them in our hearts, and we're thinking about them. So when we provide these resources, our students are extremely grateful. For example, perhaps we can use our transfer center or counseling, financial aid, our librarians, and ask them if they can come to our class and provide a presentation on the services that they provide for our students. What if perhaps we have a list of just resources at the end of our syllabus or on our Canvas page with different resources that our students can access very quickly. I know that recently Jessica Hansen, she's one of our Guided Pathways facilitators, she created, together with the Guided Pathways facilitators team, they created a Guided Pathway statement and also resources that we can add in our syllabus, but also that we can incorporate on our Canvas shelves. our librarians have also created wonderful modules that we can just easily upload into our Canvas shells. And these modules have quizzes, they have lectures. So these are great resources that we can definitely include. And what about community resources? If we know that our students can get free internet or hotspot or laptops, why not provide those resources in our Canvas page under announcements, or we can send them reminders through our the announcement page, etc. So the point of tip number 3 is that we want to make sure we build that rapport with our students. And one way to do so and to ensure that they stay in our classes is by providing them these resources. And that definitely takes me to the next point that I wanted to make. And these are the examples, for example, of the guided pathways, classroom strategies that we can add to our syllabus. This is how one of the modules that Rita, one of our librarians, created. This is how it would look on your Canvas page if you added it to it. So again, these are only some examples, some resources that we can definitely think about in adding to our classes and sharing with our students. There's other resources out there as well. But as I mentioned, our time is up. And so I want to leave you with a final thought that, you know, some changes do require much more work and time, but please do not feel overwhelmed. We're only encouraging you to do what you can, but to do something. And the different resources, the different practices and tips that we shared today, what is the one thing that perhaps you can walk away with and implement in your classes for spring 2021? What is the one thing that you can do in your syllabus, that you can add to your Canvas page, that you can say to your students? Because I can assure you that that one thing will make a difference. And that one thing that you decide to do today and implement in your classes for spring 2021 can definitely save the life of one of your students. And it could change the mind, and it could either make or break some of your students. So we really encourage you, and we hope that after today's discussion, you go home and think about what is your plan that you would like to do moving forward in preparation for spring 2021. So with that in mind, Jeff, do you want to have any final comments?
Yes, I do. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Nancy and Elena and Shamini for really pulling this all together, and actually Michelle for the great idea. Thank you, Michelle. This has been really good, and I think there's probably ideas for more of what we could do along these lines. So please send them to us. We're anxious to continue this. I know I am benefiting from this myself, so I'm anxious to put some of this into action. But thank you so much, and again, we're in this together, folks. This is we're all maybe crowded, but in this ship, and we'll make sure it doesn't sink.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Shamini. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, all of you, for taking this hour on a Friday to be drinking your favorite libation, and hopefully you're having your lunch as well with us. So thank you so much. And we hope that this is not going to be the last event. Together with Jeff and Shamini and Elena and Michelle, we'll plan other events where we can continue this conversation.